Hello and welcome to the slightly delayed Cost of Everything podcast. I'm your host Amrapal, and today we continue Season 8 with Chirag Shah, founder of Pace Recruitment. We talk about what companies are looking for from estimators, how to be successful in the role, and how the landscape is evolving, requiring us estimators to evolve with it. So, without further ado, here is this week's episode with Chirag Shah.
Great, thanks for having me on board. So my background, I actually just started in recruitment in 2005, so 18 years ago. I worked for an agency, TRS, for 17 and a half years. And 6 months ago, I set up my own consultancy, focused very much on project controls and all related disciplines. The key focus for me now going forward in that path is personal growth. So providing candidates and clients with the best service possible to help them succeed in what they're doing. Authenticity, just being real with everybody, because I think there's that gap in the market at the moment. Community is very important for me to build, our network of project controls professionals. We do a lot of networking events to create that community face-to-face and online. We have the controlshub.com as well. The real focus for me in the future is how can we attract the future, the next people in project controls, estimating and risk. It's a very sought after skill in industry. So how do we attract the best that come out of apprenticeships, degrees, universities? Very important. So thank you.
No, that's great, and hopefully we'll delve into some of these areas in particular, because I think it's an interesting thing for people who have both started in the industry or looking to get into the industry, and those who have been in it for a little while, understanding how maybe the market's changed, what the current sort of trends are, and what recruiters are looking for, but also employers are looking for, what makes an estimator successful in a new role and successfully attracting a new role. Because as I've discussed with quite a few people on the show before, estimators are not born. We're not born wanting to go into the profession. It's not like wanting to be a fireman or go become an astronaut. So you're very much molded by potentially previous careers and pivoting into this one. So I guess just as a bit of a starter, what you've seen as key challenges for organizations, so we can take an organizational perspective first on recruiting the right talent and actually, identifying the right kind of skills that they want.
You made a very good point earlier. Like project controls, it's one of those almost unknown roles. No one grows up wanting to be a project controls manager, like you said. But once someone gets into it and understands about it, they really get excited and tend to stay in that field for the long term, for the rest of their career. Estimating is really interesting as well, because it's a segment of that family, and you become niche and a specialist in that. It's like being a surgeon and going in to become a specialist heart surgeon. So the skill sets are really, really key. What employers at the moment, what we're seeing, post-COVID, that it's hiring for attitude over skill set. They want people that are keen, enthusiastic. Are you happy to go into the office? We've got a bit of a pushback now of that, hybrid working element. And why I always say to people, be prepared to go in 2 or 3 days a week as a minimum. It's really important as well for collaboration, getting the culture right for organizations as well. If you're working fully remotely, really hard to do. From a technical side, it's all, they want people that are keen to learn it and that want to keep on growing. We're seeing so many developments now, especially with AI. So no matter where you're at your career, in some parts you just need to start again, because you need to understand what's happening, how AI is changing your role, and you need to stay with it. Otherwise, you could be redundant in the near future as well.
That's really interesting, because I think what we've noted as well is that the sort of estimators who've got a technical background, for example, traditionally, and a lot of people are saying that Excel's not going anywhere, and actually you're seeing a lot of these machine learning techniques being incorporated into things like Excel. It's almost adopting a new set of tools. The other way that I've seen it sort of described is you become less of, so in the same way that a programmer becomes less about writing code, it's more about the questions you're asking and how you're interrogating the system and the tools that you've got. And a lot of it, I think, is around improving productivity and improving sort of the speed at which you're delivering. When I've been at various organizations, the understanding of what a project controls professional is, what a cost estimator, a cost engineer, a cost manager, they're sort of used in a sort of intertwined way. I guess, given where technology is going, do you see those sort of defined roles disappearing? Do you see them becoming more sort of, well, you're a cost professional, so there might be an expectation you do wear multiple different hats, or is that changing?
I think we're at very early doors, and Excel's here to stay. Especially in the short and medium term. Change takes a long time to happen. So in the short term, I would say you can use AI to make your role more efficient and be more productive as an individual, especially if you can master a few of the benefits AI brings to your role and speeds up some of the actions you do. What I see the future being is that hard work, the base work is done for you. It's all about asking the key questions, like you said, communicating those results and how it's communicated. So what we're going to see, where roles are going to change a bit more, if you're an estimator or a cost engineer, is the reporting side, the data analytics of it. So, for example, if you're doing all of this in Excel, you need to start learning Power BI as well, is one suggestion I would make, because the analysis of what you find is going to be really key, and how you communicate that to your various stakeholders. That's how the future is going to be looking.
Another really interesting insight, and something that in terms of visualizing and communicating results or the data, this has massively impacted multiple industries. So having additional skills on top of estimating is, like you say, I think it is key to wear multiple hats now. So going back a little bit, the way in which, let's say, organizations have approached you, or your discussions with particular organizations about the type of professionals they're looking for, what have been the main challenges in actually maybe industry or individuals being able to match their skills to the requirements of organizations?
Sure. So we always, since I've started in recruitment, we're always in a bit of a yin yang. Sometimes clients, organizations need people, there's not enough people, and then you obviously get recessions and there's people looking for roles, but clients don't need to hire. Since COVID, since the end of 2020, I would say we've been in that period where it's been looking for good talent. So if you are someone who is looking for a role at the moment, this is a good time to move. There's a lot going on in market. You just need to understand how best can you sell your expertise, your skills, and what you do, what you deliver to an organization. The key struggles at the moment are finding people who are willing to be enthusiastic, be committed to what they're doing. Having the technical skills, like I said earlier, it's great, but it's attitude people really want. They want people that are willing to learn, so they can teach them how they do things. We've always found, for example, estimators, hard niche, really hard to find a good estimator. And now the new estimator is almost risk specialists. Since COVID, risk wasn't very important before, but now, because you have to put that into your projects and mitigate as much as possible, the need for risk professionals at an all-time high.
So tied to that as well, you'll have an estimator. Let's go through almost like, okay, they've identified a role potentially through, or you've helped them to identify or you've found an estimator who meets the role profile of a particular organization. They've gone through the whole process. They've become successful, and they've landed the role. What do they need to do in your mind in the first 30 days? But what would you expect, or from your experience, the people who've gone on to be successful with your support, what do they need to do basically in that first period of time?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things I am seeing, again, because of the hybrid working, from organizations' perspective, firstly, there's definitely a need to improve onboarding. So that's from the company's view, how they bring their people on. Also, in the lead up to that, if you've got a role and you're working a notice period, how often is the employer you're joining in touch with you in the lead up to it? And then once you join, it's all about networking, and putting your hand up, being keen to, take on a bit of extra work or ask the key questions if you're unsure. No question's stupid is what I would say. Get out there, understand, who could you speak to? A lot of organizations run a buddy system where they assign you a buddy. Speak to that person, make that effort. Check out people with similar profiles, job to yourself on LinkedIn. Connect with that person and just say, look, I'd love to have a virtual coffee or meet face to face if you're in the office, and get to know the people in your team and your organization is really key. That's the most important part, I would say. And just get to know people beneath the job front. Find out a little bit about their personal life, and that's where you'll get the real connection happening.
In terms of, we mentioned that there's demand for what we say is really good estimators. A lot of people say good estimators hard to find. What do you think is the demand at the moment for people who are new to the industry, and or not necessarily the most experienced estimators, but potentially have a lot of technical expertise, but they want to go into estimating? They might have a short bit where they've actually had to had to pull together an estimate as part of their role previously. How do those people sell their skills, in terms of, the organization's asked for an estimator, but this is actually someone who might be able to do that job, but not necessarily, how do they present their skills in such a way that would, help them land that role?
Yeah, sure. So I would say almost one of the key things I always say to candidates when they're interviewing, yes, you can talk about your experience, you can talk about what you've done, giving great examples of what you actually achieved on a project, what you brought to it rather than the team. And also the key thing is where you've helped to troubleshoot. If there was a problem, what did you do? Forget the team, what was it your involvement? The other side as well, as long as it's not confidential, or, even if you can do a mock-up, show an example of your work and talk through it. If you are able to talk through an example, you'll be confident because you've done it and you've gone through that hard graft of constructing it. You will hold a lot of control and power in the interview, and you'll be very confident when you're articulating that. Be honest about what your weaknesses are and where your improvements are, but also understand what actions are you taking to mitigate that. You're going to plan to go on a training course for this. You're going to use. You're going to learn. There's so much free material out there on the internet to develop, and highlight that you want to invest in yourself going forward, and ask the organisation what they will do for you to help you improve as well.
You have a situation now. I'm going a little bit outside of our scope here, but maybe it ties in a little bit. We've got a situation now, right, where you've got a load of people from, and we're going to talk HS2 just briefly, but a lot of people who are expecting to do HS2 phase 2, and organizations establishing themselves and recruiting up for those roles. What happens in that situation from your perspective? Because so I've got experience from other major projects where they were in more remote areas of the country, and they were struggling to recruit certain roles. A lot of them were technical roles, let's say, but I think it equally applies to project controls. And one of the things that they were struggling with was being able to recruit, because HS2 was such a massive project and happened in some of the major cities in the country, right? So people would prefer to be a welder in Birmingham than be a welder in, middle of nowhere off the southwest coast of England or something. What happens next, let's say, for these professionals who were expecting, and these organizations who have recruited all these roles, who inevitably can't retain all these resources that they've set up for? Please excuse this mid-discussion pause. I wanted to say a big thank you for listening to this episode. I'm a full-time estimating professional, and my main motivation for continuing to produce the podcast is you. So I would really appreciate a review on Apple or Spotify if you listen on either of those platforms. It helps to reach more people, which is part of my long-term aim in growing a connected cost estimating community. If you have any suggestions or would like to join me on the show, please contact me via the contacts page at thecostofeverything.net, link is in the description, or go to the LinkedIn page and message me on there. The Cost of Everything is going from strength to strength, and I wanted to thank our sponsors ICEA for all the support and advice as we grow and make this a vibrant community. Now, back to this week's episode.
So I know it's a bit of an upsetting time for those people. We've also seen some of the main contractors in recent times go under, and it's hard. What I would say is the need for good talent is out there in all regions. So you've just got to be a little bit flexible if you are looking for a new role. Think about moving sectors. For example, at the moment, defence is absolutely crying out for good people. Nuclear is similar. If you've got the ability to get that security clearance, try look into that field. There's so much happening. The need there is big. There are new sectors as well. Data center sector is busy. We've obviously seen the pharmaceutical sector go for a boom with COVID and beyond. So that's busy. So just try to expand your net to look at other sectors. If you've got multi-sector experience, you're in a great position because you can easily go back. But if you haven't, don't worry. Yeah, people will be sympathetic to the situation and help you. This is mainly directed to people that work permanent. If you're working contract, then it's a little bit more trickier because they want that skill set already to be established and you're there to do a role. But again, hopefully you will have that multi-sector experience. What I would say is all the key regions in the country are very, very busy, so don't worry. And reach out to me, I can help direct you as well.
It's an interesting time because we have all these projects that are kicking off or starting, you mentioned nuclear. Nuclear is obviously the area that I'm in, and the number of projects potentially kicking off, the Sizewell that's potentially kicking off around the corner. Hinkley Point C still crying out for people. Then we've got the government running an SMR competition, which means there could be X number of other projects that happen at some point. It means that, infrastructure projects wise, they're always, there's going to be roles there for the foreseeable. But really interesting perspective on sort of emerging sort of technology areas where skills from project controllers could be quite adaptable for those industries. And like you said in the previous sort of part of the interview, it's just about demonstrating those skills in some instances and being able to show that you can actually do that in that industry as well. One area that I am interested in is in your journey, actually. Being on LinkedIn and things like that, you've got quite a few recruiters constantly almost having asking you, can we connect, and then can we discuss potential roles? You I found quite interesting because I think your approach it wasn't in that kind of way. In fact, I think the way we met was it was very much more personable than that, and I found it really, really interesting that the style that you've approached is quite unique, actually, in terms of, it's not just about getting the numbers in and getting the metrics up on the number of people you're recruiting. It's actually being more holistic in that. Can you talk a bit more about, not just where Pace has come from and your vision on that, but what brought you to this point?
Yeah, sure. So I've always been someone that likes to, promote project controls. I knew nothing about project controls. I was at university, knew nothing about it, went into recruitment, very quickly adopted this discipline of project controls and recruiting for it. And then, the Project Controls Expo is a great example. The annual that runs it, I knew him from the beginning, and I supported that from day one. It started off at UCL, went to Twickenham, the Emirates, and now it's at Wembley, and I loved to promote it. For me, it's we will have just passed it. It's almost like Christmas that day when you get to meet your whole network. Everybody's there. It's buzzing. It's great, like-minded professionals. For me, my key passion is collaboration. I love working with other people. I'll even work with other recruiters in the project control space if they want to work together. I like, sharing insights and understanding from not just the project controls leaders, but people early on in their journey, how what they're finding, what they're seeing, what's going on, and then sharing that knowledge. I think the key thing that we've seen is in the failure of projects is history keeps on repeating itself. If Crossrail had shared the data for why they went over budget and things like that, all their reasons, and been really deep and open with HS2 right at the beginning, would we be in this situation right now? No. And I just think if I can help to put some impact and get that shared alliances, it will just improve how project controls is delivered, which will improve the success of projects. So that's really, really key for me. I touched earlier on my values, and that's really, really important. From a personal growth perspective, I want candidates, if they're going to move jobs, you're going to move for a better position. 99% of the time, you're going to move for some more money, because at the end of the day, we might like to work, but we work to live as well. Clients. I'm only really going to work with clients that are engaged. If you're going to be one of those that, I need somebody and then you never come back to me, thanks, but no thanks. I like to make good relationships. I work in a good way. Like, I like to have a bit of humor along the way, and know about the individual, go beyond just what their job is. Networking, that community feel, meeting face to face, really, really important. So obviously project controls, like I said, was great, but it's only once a year. That's why when Val in Australia initiated the Project Connect group, I spoke to Dale and I was like, let's do the same thing. And our Project Connect group events are fantastic. We've done London, we've done Birmingham, we've just done Bristol. The support we had in Bristol was fantastic, considering, that was our first time there. Next year, we're going to have 7 events planned, and I would love the Project Controls community to support that. I try to always do my best, and I just want clients, candidates to be authentic with me as well. Also, the last value I have for Pace is empathy. Things happen. Things don't always go to plan. You may have accepted a job offer with myself, but then something's changed in your personal circumstances, meaning you can't carry on. That's fine. Not everything goes to plan, and as long as people are honest, there's a lot of understanding out there. I started off Pace because I want to make a real change to the Project Controls community, and I want other people to come on that journey. I want there to be ambassadors for the Project Connect group, support how that happens. We've got some great sponsorship from some of the software companies, so I really appreciate that, because our events are just that bit better on how we do things. I work closely with the ACOS-D. How can we get that professional brand and membership going up? So again, it elevates where project controls is a profession. In QSing, you have RICS. Why can't ACOS-D be the equivalent of RICS in project controls? So there's a lot there, but that's kind of the reasons for Pace and starting up this niche organisation.
No, that's brilliant. And you mentioned several sort of events there, like the Project Expo and the Connect groups that you've set up. I guess where can listeners find out a bit more about that?
Yeah, the best thing to do is connect with me on LinkedIn. I've got quite a unique name, so it shouldn't be hard to find me. All our networking events are posted on LinkedIn as events, so you'll see that. You'll see me sharing that. We've got 6 or 7 planned for next year. January is obviously the quiet month, so we'll be kicking off the first Thursday in February in London, and then after that we'll be moving around the country, but obviously having quite a few events in London just because that's where a lot of the hub is at the moment. If you want to reach out for career insights, market salaries, understanding your worth, are you getting paid the right amount and where you are? Have a confidential conversation with me. I'm here to help you. There was a guy in Australia just the other day. He just needed some career advice and some help with his CV, and it was very nice of him. He offered to pay me, but I was like, no, it doesn't work like that. I'll help you, and I believe very much in karma. So let's just work closer as a community and help each other is really what I would say.
So is there anything that's coming up in your world that you just want to share with the listeners and maybe a bit more about PACE?
Sure, no problem. So obviously, with this being middle of November, I think the real focus for the rest of the year is going to be Christmas and work Christmas dues and the rest. So like I said, the first event for Project Connect Group will be the first Thursday in February in London, venue to be confirmed. Another date for your diary to put in is the 1st and 2nd of May, which is the ACOSD annual conference in Manchester. That's going to be fantastic, so please be there. Those are the key dates coming up, but we're going to have a lot more happening along the way. Also, please visit thecontrolshub.com. This is our online community website for Project Controls professionals. There's blogs on there from Project Controls leaders. There's the latest events happening. There's a mentor section, which is fantastic. If I tell you now, if people who are a bit more mature in their career had this mentors area, they're absolutely loving it. And if you're early on in your career and looking for a bit of advice, we've got mentors across every discipline in Project Controls. All you need to do is contact me and I'll connect you up with the right mentor. And the best thing about this is it's not someone working in your organization. There's no bias. It's completely neutral. They're willing to offer you 30 minutes of a virtual coffee to start off, and then you can take that relationship forward from there. So I urge you to visit it, register online, and you'll get some great benefits from it.
Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch up again soon.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
And that's this week's episode. My thanks to Chirag for sharing his knowledge. The links for the Controls Hub, PACE, and to Chirag's LinkedIn profile are in the description. Thank you for listening, stay healthy, and have a great week.